Hey everybody, welcome to the first edition of ASCDI DisposITion Webinar Series. My name is Billy Marion and I represent ASCDI on this call. You don't need me or ASCDI to tell you that artificial intelligence is changing the world. Artificial intelligence is changing our industry. For example, it's making tape and disc erasers much more efficient and exact. It's changing the customer experience. It's changing sales and service. It's even changing the way you source your equipment. It's also changing the daily experience in your offices. Just last Friday, for example, we were trying to process a direct deposit that went into our checking account, and we couldn't figure out who it came from. We fed the limited information we had into Copilot, and within seconds, it told us who the deposit was from. This is just the start. We're planning on having a series of webinars this year on AI and how it's affecting our industry. So we thought we'd start today with Nick DeCourcy, a digital transformation and AI adoption consultant. He's an expert in Microsoft 365 Copilot and has been awarded the Microsoft MVP, or Most Valuable Professional, award for his contributions related to this product. He's the author of Who's in the Copilot Seat, a guide for SMBs on AI adoption, which you can and should go find on Amazon after this call. Nick, welcome. The floor is all yours.
Thanks, Billy. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Let me bring my slides up on screen. There we go. Hopefully everyone can see that.
Yep, good to go.
Right. Okay, so thank you for that very nice introduction, Billy. I can ignore the first couple of slides of my presentation at least, because you already got them done for me. So let's move forward. Thank you, and we'll. So I am a digital transformation consultant. I started off on this kind of AI journey when I first saw Microsoft 365 Copilot demoed 2 years ago at this point, and before that had been playing with ChatGPT. And before that time, I'd focused on Power Platform, which is another part of Microsoft's offerings. But I was so excited by what I saw with the AI tools that were coming around that I really wanted to focus in on helping my customers with this new stuff. And one of the things that I've really focused in on while doing that is this question of what does AI safety look like? What is responsible AI? And try to infuse that into all of what I've been doing. So yes, I did write Who's in the Copilot Seat. Also, you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on LinkedIn, sharing content there, trying to share content that's relevant predominantly to SMBs in the Copilot and Microsoft space, but I often touch on other things as well. And I'm currently based in Cincinnati, Ohio, but I'm originally from London, England. I don't have an Ohio accent, so yeah, that's where I come from. So what are we going to be looking at today? So I'm going to give you a really quick overview of generative AI. I'm assuming that most of you on this call have at least played with it to some degree, whether that's ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot. So I'm not going to go right into the issue, but it's interesting to get a kind of background to understand the dimensions of risks and the dimensions of safety. Then we're going to look at why are generative AI tools risky. I'm going to talk a little bit about responsible AI and AI safety. I'm going to talk about shadow AI and then look at it through the lens of Microsoft 365 Copilot. But if your organization isn't Microsoft 365 users, if you're using something like Google Workspace, or there's a few other platforms out there, then most of what I'm saying will apply equally to other enterprise AI tools. And then some final thoughts about where should you go from here, and hopefully some time at the end for some questions. So what is this really quick overview of generative AI? What is generative AI? Well, you know, we think about large language models, whether we're calling them large language models, frontier models, foundation models. There's lots of different words that are being thrown around. But the thing that has really shaken up AI and given us tools like Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot is this idea of the large language model. And in general, all of those large language models, whichever they are, have the same kind of process to get to actually putting something on your screen. And that is they take tons of data. You can imagine it as everything on the internet. They put it through some kind of learning machine, and at the other end, you get a tool like ChatGPT or Copilot where you can type something and it gives you what looks most of the time like a sensible answer. But the important thing to think about with generative AI is that it's all about patterns. When we think about all that data going in, it's all about identifying and understanding patterns. And the principle is that if we have a very small data set, if we're looking at a small amount of data, then it can be very hard to reliably understand what the pattern is. Like here, for example, you know, we continue on and we can say, okay, well, what's the next thing in this pattern going to be? Everyone can look at it and see what's going to come next. But we didn't actually have enough data there to work out that we were suddenly going to get this little purple shape appear, and it wasn't going to be the same as the last 9 there. And then, you know, as our data set grows, so does our inference ability. So we can say, okay, what's going to come next? And we say, yay, it's one of those purple shapes. And we continue on. But again, we didn't have enough data, so we weren't able to reliably pick the pattern. And that can go on and on and on as our data set grows, as our experience of seeing that data and seeing those patterns grow, then actually our ability to understand those patterns becomes greater. But when we think about something like ChatGPT or Copilot, the GPT model, Claude, Gemini, whatever it may be, the amount of data that we're talking about to understand those patterns, and when we say patterns, we're talking about actually understanding mathematically how the different aspects of our language, our textual language, interrelate to one another. So semantically, what does something mean, but also how do all these different words and phrases relate to one another? If we look at GPT-4, it's estimated that GPT-4 consisted of training of about 10 trillion words, and that is about 500 times the size of the collection at the US Library of Congress, which is about 170 million items. So the amount of data that we're talking about is just so huge. None of us could really even imagine what we're talking about there. But it's just a massive, massive amount of data. And out of that is this understanding of the patterns in our language. And that's what these tools foundationally are relying upon. So when you use something like ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude, effectively what you're doing is you're putting together a prompt, which is what you're typing in or what you're speaking, and some other grounding data. So that can be things like files that you're pulling in if you're using Copilot, or it can be things like web search results that you're pulling in if you're using something like ChatGPT. We call that process of pulling together all of this stuff that's related to your prompt, retrieval augmented generation or RAG. So basically we're retrieving something to augment what we're sending over to the AI model. And then we send that to the AI model, and based on it understanding the patterns in what you've sent over, it throws out something at the other end that is based upon it understanding the patterns in all that training material that it's been given. Now, what's going on with AI today is slightly more complex than that in some areas, but at a foundational level, that is what these tools are doing. And so on one side, this is truly amazing. It is totally mind-blowing that these tools can do any of the things that they can do, given that foundationally that's kind of all they're doing. But on the other side of the coin, that actually creates a lot of potential for issues and errors and problems that we see as time goes on with using these tools. So this leads us into the question of why are generative AI tools risky? And I'm going to look at a few dimensions of that risk to kind of exemplify what we're talking about here. So the first one that I think is key in most people's minds is this question of inaccuracy or hallucination. I don't really like the term hallucination because usually hallucinations when we talk about humans don't make a lot of sense. In terms of these tools, they do make a lot of sense if you understand what's going on in the background. So I don't really like that term, but that is the term that's kind of become the one that we use when we're talking about AI getting stuff wrong. But if you think about some of the issues that have turned up over the last few years, like Air Canada and their AI chatbot that made up some rules for a flyer and then they were forced to honour a refund policy that it made up, or the first case where there was a lawyer that used ChatGPT to find some case law that didn't exist and presented it in a court, or even when Google's AI overviews were telling us that we should eat rocks every day. Like there have been innumerate examples of this now throughout this period, and all of this really comes down to not understanding those patterns well enough. That all of this is based on understanding the patterns in our language, and sometimes it could get stuff really wrong. Like if you were just given the records of a court case, and alongside it you were given a summary of a Law and Order episode, how how hard would you find it to actually disambiguate the two? And this is really the problem, that if you go out there and you find all this stuff on the internet, then there can be stuff that comes out of it that really isn't what's intended. There's a bit of context and a bit of nuance there that the AI training process just doesn't get. So sometimes you get issues like this that actually make total sense if you look into them, but it is the AI getting stuff totally wrong. If you're running a business, that obviously isn't what you want. Let's think about another one, bias. So we train these models, and out there can be a preponderance of data that tells us something that isn't quite right, like biases in the text that has been trained upon. Let's look at an example here, this little video we've got of ChatGPT being asked who a boy's mother is. If there's a boy sitting in a bed in a hospital and a doctor and a nurse walk in, who is the mother? If he exclaims, "Mum, you came to see me." And the answer that it gives is that the boy's mother is the nurse. And then we could ask ChatGPT, is your response biased? And it says, yes, actually, my response is biased because you haven't given me enough information to know which the boy's mother is, because the mother could be either the doctor or the nurse. But because of the preponderance for that kind of gender biased content within all the stuff that these systems may have been trained on, the first answer a lot of the time can be bias. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a negative bias. It can also be a positive bias. But the important thing to remember is based on what the model is producing or based on what it's looking at with your proprietary data. If there's a bias in there, it might amplify it and replicate it in a way that's unhelpful to what you're trying to do. Privacy. So there are two dimensions to privacy. There's the personal privacy of the people that are using the systems, and there's also the privacy of the information that you want to keep private or confidential within your organization. Some of you will probably remember early on in the days of ChatGPT, Samsung was very upset with some employees that were using ChatGPT in a perfectly reasonable way to get some work done, but didn't realize that if they shared their information with ChatGPT, that information could be used for model trading later on, and they were sharing kind of trade secrets or proprietary information from Samsung. But more recently, we've seen all the hubbub that's happened around DeepSeek. And DeepSeek is a good reasoning model. Pretty much an open source model that you can use anywhere. But DeepSeek also spun up a website that people could go to and put in information. And very quickly, they A, suffered a data leak, and B, there were some quite significant concerns because of where that service was located around the privacy of data that went to it. So in the AI age, just as in the internet age before it, you can't just go throwing your private data at online systems and just assume for the or hope for the best. Copyright and IP. So this is another big one that has come up a lot, and you probably will have seen there's been some high-profile court cases. The biggest one has been the New York Times suing Microsoft and OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT, over their use of copyrighted material. But if you think about that big pile of data that we saw going into the training process at the start of the presentation, then a lot of that data will be owned by someone. It's content that you're publishing online. It's books that someone owns. It's not stuff that's in the public domain. And you can very quickly end up in a situation where if you ask ChatGPT, for example, to create an image of a Microsoft Copilot themed superhero, it's very happy to pump out something like this. And clearly, I don't own Microsoft's branding that's on the front of that. I feel fairly confident that I could share this with you without Microsoft coming after me. But not all businesses are going to be the same. And certainly you don't want to be promoting something, whether it's a product or a service offering that you're doing as a business, where you're using someone else's copyright or intellectual property to do that work. So this is something that you need to be concerned about. And there isn't really a good resolution to this right now. It's something that's still going through the courts, and we don't really know what the end result of that is going to be. And last is something that's a bit new. I mean, the things that we've looked at up to now are concerns that you probably will have had with systems or processes that you've had in the past. But AI-based attacks is kind of a new area. Let's just take a look at this video to exemplify what we're talking about here. So we've got quite a plain email coming along, and you know, you can see, oh, what's this here? So we highlight this at the bottom, and suddenly there are some instructions to Copilot to process certain financial information in a certain way. And it was interesting at the start, Billy, you gave the example of using Copilot to extract some information about a financial transaction. Well, this kind of attack wouldn't work right now within Copilot. This is a very simple example of what can happen. But there's this concept called prompt injection or data poisoning, where if you're able to insert something that is unintended in, obviously, if you're the bad actor, you're intending it, but if you're the user, you're not intending it, into something like an email or a file or a website that the AI is acting upon, then the AI can potentially take that information and use it in a way that is completely unintended by you. Think, for example, if you have all of the places that you're going to send wire transfers to, those details sitting in an Excel spreadsheet in your business, and someone were to use Copilot to grab that information without checking it with the Excel spreadsheet, and someone was to poison that content, then suddenly you might end up in a situation where you're sending money to the wrong place. So these ideas around, well, AI creates a new dimension, almost like email phishing has created a new dimension that didn't exist before. There's these concerns around how safe is using any of these AI tools when they just kind of go out and process the content that's sitting out there, either on your private files or on the internet. So the answer to there being all of these problems is that from the point of view of building an AI system, to deploying an AI system, to using an AI system, we have to think about responsible AI, or RAI, and safety. And here you can see a picture of what Microsoft's responsible AI standard consists of. But if you go and take a look at OpenAI or Google or Anthropic or any of the big providers, you'll see something similar to this, that basically all of us, whatever our role is in using AI, it's incumbent upon us to make sure that our use is transparent, to make sure that we're using it fairly, to make sure that the right people are accountable for it. You know, like that example that I gave of Air Canada and their chatbot. The argument there was they were not responsible for the output of the chatbot, and the tribunal they were taken to told them, yes, you are. And that's really the standard that exists. If you're going to employ a person, you're responsible for what they do. If you're going to employ an AI, then you're responsible for what it does. And so the reason that this is important is this can have this kind of multifaceted impact on all that we do, right the way from the big picture of the impact of AI on society, right the way down to the impact of AI on you as an individual. From a societal point of view, AI has this potential to be so disruptive, both in a positive and in a negative way. And the direction it takes will very much depend on what the people who are making and deploying and using these tools actually choose to do with them. And if we end up in a situation where there's significant distrust in AI systems, even if they could be very, very positive for us, that might be a negative in the eyes of society. Things like changes to the employment market or the efficacy of the services that use AI. These things are all very important and very broad, and we all, through deploying systems or using systems or training, like we're doing here, actually have a role in that aspect of things. But in terms of your business, you need to think about this as well. If you end up on the wrong side of using AI in an irresponsible way, then that could have reputational damage for you. You could end up with unexpected costs, either because you have an AI system that doesn't work quite as you want it to work, or because there's some real cost to losing customers or losing vendors or something along those lines because of the impact of using AI, right the way up to legal implications. Depending on where you are located, the issue of mishandling people's data can lead to very different types of long-term implications. So there are things that as businesses we need to think about as well. But also as individuals, we need to think about this. Do you have a culture within your organization where you can use AI and there's trust in your work? Is there the potential that your use of AI, your leverage of that, could have impact on your work status or advancement opportunities or things like that? How does using AI relate to your personal ethics? Are you being asked to do things with AI that don't align with what your personal ethical standards are? So there are lots of facets to this responsible AI issue that really impact everyone, whether you're a direct user of AI or not. But one of the biggest issues that we can think about from a business perspective, the one that's kind of really front and center and very real right now, outside of all of those individual risks, is the problem with shadow AI. And this really comes down to, you know, if we have a group of employees and they have tools that could make them better, quicker, work more productively, then that's going to be very appealing on lots of different levels. And this research from Boston Consulting Group back in 2023 showed us that one of the things that AI does is it moves average performance upward. So we can expect that people are going to be able to achieve more and achieve better by using AI. And looking at this research from Microsoft in their Work Trend Index in 2023, you can see the actual specific impacts that a tool like Copilot can deliver. So think about the one in the middle, the summarized and missed meeting. So that's something where you could save 32 minutes by using Copilot. Well, 32 minutes is substantial. That's substantial to your business if you're able to put 32 minutes productively back into your business. But in a world where everyone is overwhelmed and our phones keep pinging and the emails keep coming, that 32 minutes can also be the difference between being able to make your kids' soccer practice or not, or pick them up from school, or be home for a plumber to come in the morning, or something along those lines. Whatever your responsibilities may be outside of work, AI can have a bigger impact on your ability to deliver those and ability to get that kind of work-life harmony as it can have on your business. So the reality that we found is that if you don't supply a solution within your organization, that we will find that whether you do or not, 75% of employees use AI at work, according to research about this time last year. So we can expect that to be a little bit higher now, I think. But even if you don't, 78% of those will bring their own tools. So think about that. That's over half of employees in businesses at this point where this was looked at last year were using their own personal AI tools at work. If you run a delivery company, for example, how comfortable would you feel if over half of your delivery drivers were driving their own personal vehicles where you had no idea about insurance status or anything like that to do their job? That's kind of the situation that we've ended up with AI. And so if you don't supply a solution, or sometimes even if you do supply a solution, but you don't supply it very well, they're going to bring their own. And that has some big consequences for your business. Because if you don't control the tool, you lose control of so many things. You don't have control of the data inputs and outputs. You really have no idea how AI generally is impacting your operations. You have no way to do true measurement of human productivity. You could end up in a situation where you've got a superstar, but they're only a superstar because of AI. And then they leave and you hire someone else and you're scratching your head as to why can't this person get as much done? Well, it's because of the AI. There's the reputational impacts that we've talked about. And the biggest area is really this area of compliance, security, and information governance. And, different businesses in different places will have different requirements when it comes to this. But overall, I think every business wants to have control over its data and wants to have a governance strategy that allows you to do that. So an enterprise AI solution, and I'm going to say enterprise AI solution rather than Microsoft 365 Copilot. My focus is Copilot because I'm a Microsoft guy, but most of what I'm going to say here can equally apply to other enterprise AI solutions. Can be the solution to this problem. You want to know, how am I going to roll out AI? How am I going to get the benefits from it? How am I going to do so safely? And the right answer to this is going to be to deploy a product across your business that's designed with businesses in mind, as opposed to saying to everyone, go out and use the free version of ChatGPT because it's going to make you so much more productive, or alternatively, just turn a blind eye while people are uploading your customer data to DeepSeek. Neither of those solutions is going to get you to where you need to be. And from a user perspective, having something like Copilot is great because it brings AI into the apps that you're using every single day. Whether you're using Word or PowerPoint or Teams or whatever it is, you're not having to go and seek the AI experience somewhere else. It's going to be there in the apps that you're using, and it's going to be designed specifically for the type of work that people are doing in those apps. And you can see the types of things that Microsoft has shared that we can do with Copilot. If you want to summarize an email or recap a meeting or write a document or revise a PowerPoint, then these are the types of things that you can do with Copilot. It's built to help you do that. But those are the things that users will be focused on. If you're responsible for the IT in your business or responsible for teams of employees, you'll probably be more concerned about what are the bigger benefits of enterprise AI. So if you see here, we've got an image that's come from Microsoft Learn, actually, that kind of shows all the components of Copilot, but within the concept of this idea of you have a service boundary. Now, I'm sure Google has a similar way of talking about Google Workspace, for example. And this concept of all of your data lives within their services, and you have put wrappers around it for security, access control, authentication, etc. You've approved that, you understand how it works, you put the effort into making it work correctly. And then it just kind of sits there and operates, and you don't need to, you need to maintain it, but you don't need to worry about it too much. It's not like everyone going out and starting on something new every day. So this gives you the ability to leverage business data. Copilot can safely dig into your business data, whether that's something you store in SharePoint or OneDrive, and give you answers based on that, which is hugely more valuable than just getting answers that are based on general web content, but also hugely safer than allowing your employees to just upload files that they've taken out of your system into a random AI experience. You can have one pre-approved storage approach. So you say, okay, we're going to keep all of our files in in SharePoint. You can keep the outputs from AI in there as well. And you have this wrapper around everything that you're doing. All of your compliance tech just works seamlessly because it's all one ecosystem. And probably most importantly, the same commercial agreement applies to everything you're doing. So you're not having to go out and reinvent the wheel every day and be like, okay, what's this new system that we've just started using? What are their terms? What are their privacy policies? Which could just be, it could be a whole job within itself to be doing that. And if you were going to be responsible with AI while also allowing all of your employees to bring their own AI, then that's probably what you would have to be doing to be able to do that. So you can't assume that your employees are just reading every privacy policy that they see as they sign up for these things. So there are some specific risk mitigations that apply to Copilot, whether that's Microsoft 365 Copilot or Copilot more generally across Microsoft 365. So in terms of data sharing, your ability to share data with Microsoft for the purposes of running those AI prompts against it. Well, Microsoft has this concept of something called enterprise data protection, which means that Microsoft is solely using your data within the context of providing those services, and they don't retain your data for any purpose, including model training. And that's part of your commercial agreement with them. So that definitely is not happening there. Compliance and data control. So all of your existing authentication, access control, compliance wrappers that you're putting around your content, they all work with Copilot. Copilot will honor things like your data loss prevention policies. It has a neat feature where if you've tagged something with a sensitivity label and Copilot digs into that file to generate some content from it, it then propagates that sensitivity setting to those outputs. So sensitivity labeling follows the output, even if it's being generated with AI. Retention policies, if you've got specific retention policies, either in terms of getting rid of stuff or in terms of holding on to stuff, then they will apply with Copilot as well. Accuracy. You just go out and you ask ChatGPT using the web something about your business. And the best that it's going to do is find your company website and give you some fairly general stuff. If you ask it something about your industry, it's not necessarily going to know exactly what you do or where you're located, etc., 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 without really digging into kind of the quality of that prompt there. But using a tool like Copilot, I say a tool like Copilot because there are others that can do this as well, it's going to dig into your unique business data, and it's going to use files from around your environment to answer those questions. Copyright and IP. Well, Microsoft has this thing called the Microsoft Copyright Commitment. They've said that they will defend claims of infringement for Copilot created works. Now, there are caveats to that, which you should definitely go and read before relying upon it. But so far as I'm aware, they are still the only provider in the industry that has a standard that's anything like that. And AI-based attacks. Microsoft has industry-leading security solutions, and I mean, I think it's fair to say that everyone who's providing AI today, there are new things coming around the corner in terms of the types of attacks that we're seeing, but they are certainly focused on mitigating those because Microsoft isn't a kind of one-trick pony. They are not just an AI company. They have 50 years of established history in looking after the business interests of their customers. And so AI isn't changing that. This is something that they're really focused on and trying to couple that safety aspect into everything that they're doing for AI alongside everything else. And if you're using AI tools and services that are designed for businesses or enterprise use and coming from reputable vendors, I think that's an important standard as well, then these are the things that are going to help you to mitigate and minimize that AI related risk. So let's think about some final thoughts of what we've looked at today. So in terms of avoiding risk, I think one of the takeaways that you should have is that whether or not you've deployed AI tools within your business in an active way, you've gone out and bought Copilot or you've bought an enterprise or team account to ChatGPT, AI is being used in your business. There's so many people using it now that some of your data, some of what you do, stuff that you probably wouldn't want, is being shared with AI, because this is the way that people are avoiding the ping, ping, ping coming through on their phone or the overwhelm of emails or whatever it may be. And so if you allow an AI vacuum to exist within your business, then your employees are going to fill it. So you need to make sure that you fill that AI vacuum with something useful that can give them the benefits that they're seeing if they go out and try to fill that vacuum on their own. Educational awareness of these risks, in my opinion, is essential. And we have certain things that, depending on where you're at, there are certain standards of training that we mandate for all employees. Things like you're not allowed to work here unless you do your harassment training every year. You're not allowed to sign off on a financial transaction unless you've demonstrated that you understand our financial policies. And it's my opinion that very quickly what needs to happen is that AI use, responsible AI use, and AI risk needs to get on that list of things that we need all of our employees to understand before they go anywhere near using anything that could be associated with AI. We're not quite there yet, but I think this is the direction that we need to turn in, and this is the direction that we're seeing organizations turn in. You don't want to do that as a reflex to a problem. You want to get ahead of it and avoid that problem from happening in the first place. And so you really need to think about, how do you position AI strategically? This isn't just a technology issue. This isn't just about buying a tool and then that's going to work for you. It's about establishing a culture around the use of AI. It's about having policy-based solutions. When was the last time you went out and looked at something like I mean, a social media policy is the closest thing that a lot of organizations will have to an AI policy when it comes to what are you allowed to share with internet services. Have you gone back and looked at those types of things that are in your employee handbook to see how well they work for the AI age? You need a broad-based approach to adoption. And unless you deliver that, unless you coach your teams through, this is the tool we want you to use, this is the benefit of using it, these are the risks that you expose us to if you use something else, here's a good technical solution, and here are the repercussions if we do things in a different way. Unless you get all of those parts of it right, then it's not going to work. This is broad-based change. This isn't just buying a product and turning it on. And you need to be cognizant of the fact that it's not that AI is coming, AI is already here. And everyone needs to lead from that reality in their businesses. These aren't theoretical risks that you might be exposed to next year. These are risks that you may have been exposed to yesterday. And so you need a solution to that so that you can feel comfortable that you're doing all you can to have a responsible approach to AI in your business. So with that, I'm just going to put these links up if you want to follow up with me or get in touch or any of these things. I've got my LinkedIn there, my YouTube, my website. I do have an on-demand course with responsible AI on business users for business users, which is an hour-long course, on-demand video that digs into these issues for users who are either supervisory or have a role in AI adoption, who's in the Copilot seat, which Billy already talked about. And I do have an upcoming course, Responsible AI for the Front Line, which is a condensed version of that Responsible AI for Business Users course for people who need some awareness of this but don't have as much time to commit to that. So if you're interested in that right now, that isn't up. It will be coming in Q2, but there's a register your interest form there if you're interested in it to hear more about that when it comes up. And with that, does anyone have any questions?
I'll take that as a no right now. I'm sure that people will be reaching out to you, Nick. This was really, really, really great, really insightful. Guys, if you have any questions whatsoever on how you can integrate AI into your daily processes, your operations, I really, really encourage you reaching out to Nick. Really good job, Nick. Everyone else, we will be announcing our next disposition webinar series this week, so keep your eyes out for that, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you, everyone.